This is my tutorial for setting up a Windows system to use a virtual instrument in jamulus, and especially using jack router to split the audio signals. So first, short my setup. I'm using a digital piano there is my PC, that little black box. Here's my Focusrite audio interface. My screen, obviously, I fixed it to the piano. And here's my amplifier. And here are my speakers. I've been playing around with studio monitors, but I found that these are second-hand speakers from a surround box. You can buy them quite easily second-hand for about 50-60 euros. And this Behringer amplifier is the combination with that is really good, I think, for playing piano. I don't use the sound from the digital piano itself. I'm addicted to using virtual instruments, so I use Pianotech, which I can highly recommend. It's not free, but it's a really good program for good piano sounds. But you can use this tutorial applied to any virtual instrument.
Now, first I'll tell you the way you shouldn't do it. What I thought, I don't want to use the speaker output and feed that to a microphone and in that way send the piano sound to jamulus. I thought that wouldn't give me a good sound quality. So I thought I would try to connect the output of the audio interface to the input of the audio interface to the microphone input, so that I would have an electrical connection instead of through the speakers and a real microphone. And actually that works for jamulus. It works for me, but what I found is that the other users, they experience a big echo when they listen to me. And then I figured out a day later what's actually happening. Of course, doing it that way, you actually put the entire mix of what you're hearing through the speakers, you're also feeding to the microphone input and to jamulus. So you're also feeding back all the sound that the other musicians are making and feeding that to jamulus as your input signal. And obviously that is going to give this feedback effect or echo effect. So that can work, but your other musicians won't be happy with it. You can compare it with if you work with without headphones, but then in an electrical way. So it's the same drawback. So I figured out you need to have some software means to feed the clean signal from the virtual instrument application into jamulus. And the first thing after some Googling, I found you can use Voicemeeter Banana, which is a nice freeware program. And you can set that up. There are some good tutorials about how to use it. The only big drawback I found is that it doesn't work well with Focusrite drivers. You get a horrible distortion, so that is really spoiling it. And somewhere on the forum sites about Voicemeeter, a banana program, there's an explanation from the makers that there's actually something funny or something not standard ASIO in the Focusrite driver that's causing this problem. So I actually played around with another interface an old interface that I have, a Steinberg interface, about 15 years old, but it works, and actually it works fine with Voice Meter Banana. But I wanted to use the Focusrite interface because it gives me some advantages, like it's got its own MIDI input and it's a bit more modern and a bit higher quality. So that's when I did some more Googling and I found jackaudio. So if you Google that, jackaudio Windows install, here's the explanation. And you obviously download this, the 64-bit version. And this sentence is very important, an elevated command prompt. First I ignored that and I couldn't get it installed. So elevated command prompt means that you have to open a command prompt as administrator. The way to do that is go to Windows here. One of the ways to do is and type CMD and then right click and then run as administrator. And then what it says here is actually not totally correct. This file, this path here is not the way it was installed on my system, at least. This version number wasn't there. So if you do that literally, it won't work. What you can do is you can copy paste this from your browser, copy and go to the command prompt and you can paste there. So I'm going to correct this because I know that you can actually check the path here. Program files x86 and it's jack. It's not jack version something. Here, jack. So obviously this is a little bit this instruction is a little bit outdated. But anyway, if you do it this way, and especially if you have it run, you did the run as administrator trick, this is going to work. Succeeded. So now jackaudio is properly installed. I'm not sure if the icons are installed automatically on your desktop, because I've been doing some tidying up myself. But you can the program that you want to use is jackctl, and you make a shortcut there, for example, to your desktop. And this is not very user friendly, but it works. Say the control panel for jackaudio. So if you look at the setup window, here is the output and the input device. It might not be set properly automatically, so I set it to my Focusrite USB audio here, and the same for my input. Focusrite USB audio, and then I didn't change anything, so OK button is great. Now if I open Jamulus and go to the settings window, there should be a device jack router as the device name. You put it to that value. And what I also do in my virtual instrument program, I go to options and I do the same. I choose, don't put it, if I'm using it standalone, it'll be on my Focusrite, but now if I'm using it through jack router to use Jamulus, I put it to jack router. To have it actually working, you also need to actually connect to a server. So I'll just use some random server now to connect to. But to have the system really working, you have to work with, you have to configure jackaudio still. And there are two ways. It gets a little bit complicated, but one console is you get through the connect window. It is actually the connections that are from different input and output so-called ports that are active. You can put them on and off by for each channel by clicking them and then pressing connect or disconnect. But the main disadvantage of using that window, it is the information is not saved. So it only works as long as you are running a computer. If you restart a computer, this information is lost again. And then the other, so you might as well close this again. The other way that I prefer is use Patch Bay. It's a utility that somehow I think it was built later. And it's very similar to the Connect window, Patch Bay window, but not quite the same. You can add and remove output sockets and input sockets. And sockets means that they can be usually more than one channel. So usually it is stereo, so you have 2 channels per socket. So to show you how it works, I will remove Piano Tech now and then add it again. It searches for the different programs that are connected to port audio, to jackaudio. So one of them is Piano Tech. It recognizes it, and I can add 2 plugs. So add output number 1 as a plug and output number 2 as a plug, and there it is again. So, and the same accounts for jamulus. I'm using jamulus as an output socket, but also as an input socket. So just to show the principle, I will disconnect everything for now. And so what I want is the Pianotech program, I want it to feed to jamulus. So I click jamulus and Pianotech, and then I press connect. Then I get this line here. And then I want jamulus as as output socket, so the output of jamulus. I want that to connect to system. System is actually just my Focusrite, eventually what goes to the speakers. So if you connect that this way, and I also have included a socket here which I call mic, which is the just one channel of the input channel of the of system. Actually, I might as well. I'll make it again so you can see what I'm doing. So I add here client system, and I only use capture 1, which is actually the first microphone channel at plug. I'm only using 1 microphone, so I only use 1. The microphone I also want to feature jamulus. It's just for talking to the other musicians. I won't use it for music, but just for speech or singing. If I don't do any singing, but for people who want to sing. So. So mic is connected to jamulus, Pianotech is connected to jamulus. Actually, I messed it up, so I was going to delete this one. This one I was deleting. System 1, I think I can give it a name. So I'll call it microphone 1, and I'm connecting this to jamulus, and then I'll also add jamulus outputs here, and this goes to the speakers, so to system, because the system system means the actual speakers through the Focusrite USB interface. So just checking if this piano tech going to jamulus, microphone going to jamulus output going into the input of system. So this setup you can save. I'll give it a new name. Just call it demo now. And what you do now, you activate. I can open the connect window. I can disconnect everything here. And then I click activate. Now the different connections have been made. Although now I'm wondering why the connection from Pianotech to Jamulus actually have not been made. That's a bit funny. I was expecting a line here from Pianotech to Jamulus. Sometimes I experience that in Jamulus you have to open and close or set and reset the device. So I put it back to Focusrite and then put it back to jack router, and then it's still not working. So I'm going to figure out what's wrong. So I just put the recording program in pause mode and I fixed it meanwhile. And what I did is I restarted the Pianotech program. So that's a bit mysterious why that was needed. But now it is actually working. You can hear my piano, and the piano is just working through Jamulus. So if I could test it by putting the slider down. So the slider is working. So and also so now I have a clean signal from the from my virtual piano feeding into Jamulus, and my chat microphone feeding into Jamulus. And I can check that it's working because these lines are there in the connection window. The lines are there as they should be. And I found that sometimes to get it working, you have to either restart Jamulus or you have to restart the virtual instrument program. Some of the characteristics of the jackaudio software that I don't really understand yet. You can see that meanwhile I reloaded the my original patch-based setup. But that didn't make the difference. It's actually the same as the demo version that I just made. There's one more thing I want to show about the jackaudio configuration. And to explain that, why it's needed, I'm going to go back to the patch bay. What you have to understand that activating the patch bay only creates connections, but it doesn't delete any connections. And what I found disturbing is that if I start the jack audio system and then start the virtual instrument program, it automatically sets up a direct connection from the Pianotech, the virtual instrument, direct to the system. So this line here, it automatically creates this connection. And from out. So these are automatically created by jackaudio when it starts up, and and this you don't want, because you just want to hear yourself through Jamulus and not directly. So I'll just disconnect them for now. And I found out I found out there is a way to prevent jackaudio from doing that, and it's a command line option. I found it somewhere in the documentation, and if you go to setup and you go to advanced, it says please don't touch these settings unless you know what you're doing. But these, I think the default S is already there. But what I added is so small caps A and caps A, which is preventing automatic connections from starting up. So I put it in, and that's made a difference for me, because I got confused every time because of this automatic connection being started up, which I didn't want, and which is not switched off by the jack bay system, as I explained. So a bit complicated, but it works. And also to finish this video, you have to some remarks about the sequence that you start up, because if you start up jack row, that interface is not working because jack router software is not running, so it reverts back automatically. Jamulus will revert back automatically to some other interface. Start. You can click away all these windows and minimize this one automatically. The same accounts for your virtual instrument. What I do is I start it so I first start the jack control, then I start the virtual instrument and jackaudio. Because this program also will start complaining if the jackaudio isn't working and it's trying to find it. So now I don't hear anything because it's not connected, and so that's good. Then I connect, and I can start playing. So just to show that I have one working sequence of opening the program that actually works every time, I'll start from scratch, just to convince myself and to convince you that it can actually work one way right first time. So first start the jack controls. I could check that this patch bay actually doesn't activate automatically, so I activate it, but nothing will happen because the other programs are not running yet. Then start the virtual instrument. Make sure that the device is set to jack router. Then start Jamulus. Make sure the device is set to jack router 2. Then make a connection. Then you can see these connections actually appearing, and it is working. So thanks for your patience. This was my demo of installing jackaudio to work with a virtual instrument in Jamulus.